Part 1, The Mysterious Arrival. Heading, The Knock at 3:12 a.m. The night was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you feel like the world has stopped breathing. The only sound was the faint hum of the neon sign outside my window, flickering its usual beer and billiards message. I had been lying in bed for hours, staring at the ceiling, wondering if sleep would ever come. That's when it happened. A knock. Not just any knock, but 3 sharp raps followed by a pause, then 2 more. It was 3:12 a.m. exactly. I knew because I had been staring at the clock, counting the minutes. I sat up, my heart pounding. No one knocks on your door at 3:12 a.m. for a good reason. It's never a surprise pizza delivery or a late-night package. It's always something bad. I considered pretending I wasn't home, but then I remembered the neon sign outside my window. Anyone looking up would see it flickering, and they'd know someone was here. I sighed and got out of bed, my bare feet hitting the cold floor. "Who is it?" I called out, already knowing that whoever was on the other side of the door wasn't going to give me a straight answer. There was silence, and then, barely above a whisper, a voice said, "Please." That single word carried a weight, a desperation that made my stomach twist. Against all rational thought, I unlatched the door and cracked it open. That's when she pushed inside. She moved so fast that for a split second, I thought I was about to be mugged. But she didn't pull a weapon or go for my throat. Instead, she stumbled forward, collapsing against me. I barely caught her. She smelled like rain and metal, not the fresh kind of rain, but the cold, acrid kind that clings to city streets after a storm. Her dark hair was matted to her forehead, her coat soaked through and tattered at the edges, like she'd been running through barbed wire. But it was her eyes that got me. They were wide, wild, like she was seeing ghosts behind me, monsters in the walls. I was still processing the fact that a complete stranger was now half-conscious in my arms when she sucked in a shuddering breath and whispered, "They're coming." Heading, The Glitch. I wasn't a hero. I wasn't the kind of guy who ran toward danger. My survival instincts were finely tuned to avoid situations like this. Unfortunately, my legs had other plans. Instead of dumping her back outside and slamming the door, I found myself half-carrying her to the couch. Okay, I said, gently lowering her onto the cushions. Let's start with the basics. 1. Who exactly is coming? And 2, should I be packing a bag and jumping out the window right now? Her fingers clenched into the fabric of her coat. "No time," she whispered. "You say that like I have a good track record with trusting strangers who barge into my apartment at 3 a.m., I muttered. She swallowed hard, her throat working around whatever words she wanted to say. But before she could, her entire body convulsed. I jumped back, my brain short-circuiting between, is she having a seizure, and, oh God, did I just invite an alien parasite into my home? Her back arched, a ragged gasp escaping her lips. And then, something flickered across her skin. Not on her skin, through it. For the briefest second, her entire face seemed to glitch, like a bad hologram. I froze. "Okay, that's new," I said, my voice trembling. She sucked in a sharp breath, the spasms fading. Whatever had just happened, she looked just as horrified as I felt. "Don't panic," she rasped. "It's funny you say that because the last time I saw someone's face flicker like a broken display, it was because, oh wait, I've never seen that before. So maybe give me a second to decide whether I should be panicking," I said, my voice rising. Her breathing was ragged. I'm not entirely human." I stared at her, then nodded slowly. "Cool. That makes total sense. You definitely look human, but I'll just go ahead and assume you're, what? Some kind of synthetic? A runaway clone? Oh, are you one of those quantum state experiment subjects? I hear those guys have a fun time staying corporeal." She let out a small, breathless laugh. You joke, but yes. Something like that. I blinked. I had been joking. So, the people after you? I asked, my voice hesitant. Her face darkened. Not people. That was not the answer I wanted. Heading, the first knock. I ran a hand down my face. You know what? I'm going to get some water. And when I come back, I'm going to pretend I understand what's going on. I made it halfway to the kitchen before she said something that stopped me cold. They can track thoughts. I turned slowly. Come again? Her gaze was distant, haunted. They're not bound by space. They don't follow footprints. They don't track DNA. They track awareness. If you think about them, they know where you are. Silence. I cleared my throat. So, just to be clear, by talking about them right now. She closed her eyes, yes. A single bead of sweat rolled down my spine. All right, I said carefully. New plan. Let's never think again. Part 2, The Hidden Tunnel. Heading, The Secret Passage. The dimly lit corridor stretched ahead of us, its walls lined with rusted pipes that dripped condensation onto the cracked concrete floor. The air was thick with the scent of machine oil and old circuits, a strange mix that made my nose twitch. Kira leaned against the wall, her breathing steady but her eyes darting around like she expected something to jump out at us any second. So, I said, breaking the silence, care to explain where we are? Or is this another one of those, no time to explain, situations? Kira glanced at me, her expression unreadable. This is an old maintenance tunnel. It runs under the city, connecting to various safe points. It's one of the few places they can't easily track us. They being the shadowy fog monsters that want to, what, exactly? Eat us? Erase us? Turn us into more shadowy fog monsters? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she pushed off the wall and started walking down the corridor, her boots echoing softly against the concrete. I hesitated for a moment before following her, my mind racing with questions. Kira, I said, catching up to her, you said they track thoughts. So, if we're not thinking about them, they can't find us, right? In theory, she replied, her voice low. But it's not that simple. They're persistent. And they adapt. The dampener bought us some time, but it won't last forever. Great. So, what's the plan? We just keep running through these tunnels until we find a way out of the city? She shook her head. No, we need to get to a specific location. There's a device there, a stabilizer. It can create a temporary barrier, something that will block their influence long enough for us to figure out our next move. I frowned. A stabilizer? Like the thing you used back at my apartment? Similar, but more powerful. This one can create a localized reality lock, making it impossible for them to enter or even sense us within a certain radius. Okay, that sounds useful. So, where is this stabilizer? Kira hesitated, then pointed down the corridor. About a mile that way. But we need to be careful. The tunnels aren't exactly safe. What do you mean, not safe? Like, structurally unsafe, or there are more shadow monsters down here unsafe? Both, she said simply. I groaned. Of course it's both. Why wouldn't it be both? Heading, the first encounter. We walked in silence for a while, the only sounds the occasional drip of water and the faint hum of the pipes. The corridor seemed to stretch on forever, the dim lights flickering every now and then, casting eerie shadows on the walls. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, even though Kira had assured me that the dampener was still active. So, I said, trying to distract myself, how did you end up on the run from these things? What did you do to piss them off? Kira didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, almost hesitant. It's not what I did. It's what I am. I raised an eyebrow. And what are you, exactly? Besides, not entirely human, which, by the way, is still a pretty vague description. She sighed. It's complicated. Let's just say I'm different. And that difference makes me a target. Different how? Like, superpowers different? Or, I accidentally opened a portal to another dimension different? More like, I was created to be a weapon different, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I stopped walking, staring at her. Wait, what? You were created? As in, someone made you? She nodded, her expression grim. Yes. I was designed to fight them. But something went wrong. I escaped. And now they want me back. I blinked, trying to process what she was saying. So, you're like a super soldier? Or a robot? Or... I'm not a robot, she interrupted, her voice sharp. I'm something else. Something they didn't expect. Okay, I said, holding up my hands. Sorry. I didn't mean to offend. It's just a lot to take in. She nodded, her expression softening slightly. I know. But we don't have time for a full explanation. We need to keep moving. I sighed. Right. Because the shadow monsters are probably still looking for us. Exactly. We continued down the corridor, the tension between us palpable. I wanted to ask more questions, to understand what was going on, but I could tell Kira wasn't in the mood to talk. So, I kept my mouth shut and focused on putting one foot in front of the other. Part 3, The Stabilizer. Heading, The Plan. The safe room was quiet, the only sound the faint hum of the lights overhead. Kira and I sat on the floor, our backs against the cold metal walls, trying to catch our breath. The adrenaline from the tunnel collapse was still coursing through my veins, but the exhaustion was starting to set in. I could feel my eyelids growing heavy, but I knew we couldn't afford to rest for long. So, I said, breaking the silence, what's the plan? We can't stay here forever. Kira opened her eyes, her gaze focused and intense. We need to get to the stabilizer. It's our only chance. Right, the stabilizer, I said, nodding. The thing that's supposed to create a barrier and keep the shadow monsters out. Where is it? Not far from here, she replied, pushing herself to her feet. But we need to move quickly. They'll be looking for us. I groaned, dragging myself up off the floor. Of course they will. Because why wouldn't they? Kira ignored my sarcasm, already moving toward the door. She punched in another code on the keypad, and the door slid open with a hiss. The corridor beyond was dark, the only light coming from the device on her wrist. Stay close, she said, stepping out into the corridor. I followed her, my heart pounding in my chest. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel the weight of the shadows pressing in around us. Every sound, every flicker of light, made me jump. I was on edge, and I knew Kira was too. How much further? I whispered, my voice barely audible. Not far, she replied, her voice low. Just a few more turns. We moved quickly, our footsteps echoing softly against the concrete floor. The corridor seemed to stretch on forever, the darkness closing in around us. I could feel the fear creeping up my spine, but I forced myself to keep moving. We didn't have a choice. Heading, the second encounter. We had been walking for what felt like hours when Kira suddenly stopped, holding up a hand to signal me to do the same. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. What is it? I whispered, my voice barely audible. Kira didn't answer. Instead, she pointed ahead, her eyes fixed on something in the darkness. I followed her gaze, and my stomach dropped. There, at the end of the corridor, was a shadow. Not just any shadow, a shifting, pulsing mass of darkness that seemed to writhe and twist in on itself. It was like nothing I had ever seen before, and it sent a chill down my spine. "What the hell is that?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "Them," Kira replied, her voice tight. "They're here." I swallowed hard, my mind racing. "What do we do?" "We run," she said, grabbing my arm and pulling me back the way we had come. We didn't get far. The shadow surged forward, moving faster than I thought possible. It was like a wave of darkness, crashing down on us with terrifying speed. I could feel the cold, the weight of it pressing against my skin, and I knew we weren't going to make it. "Kira," I shouted, panic rising in my voice. "Hold on," she yelled back, pulling something from her coat. It was the same metallic device she had used before, the one that had created the dampener. She pressed her thumb to its surface, and it unfolded, the lattice of light wrapping around her wrist. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Part 4, The Hidden Truth. Heading: The Calm Before the Storm. The stabilizer hummed softly in the background, its rhythmic pulse a strange comfort in the otherwise tense silence of the room. Kira and I sat on the floor, our backs against the cold metal walls, trying to catch our breath. The barrier was up, and for now, we were safe. But the weight of what lay ahead hung heavy in the air. "So," I said, breaking the silence, "what now? We can't just sit here forever." Kira glanced at me, her expression unreadable. "We need to figure out why they're after you. There's something about you that they want, and if we can figure out what it is, maybe we can use it against them." I frowned, running a hand through my hair. "But how? I don't even know what makes me special. I'm just me." "There has to be something," she insisted, her voice firm. "Something you're not even aware of. Maybe something from your past, or something you've forgotten." I sighed, leaning my head back against the wall. "I don't know, Kira. My life's been pretty boring up until now. I mean, unless you count the time I accidentally set my microwave on fire, but I don't think that's what we're looking for." She didn't laugh. Instead, she studied me with those intense eyes of hers, like she was trying to see past the surface, into the very core of who I was. It was unnerving, to say the least. "Think," she said finally. "There has to be something. Something that doesn't add up. Something that feels off." I closed my eyes, trying to think. My mind raced through memories, trying to find anything that stood out. But everything seemed so normal, so mundane. I was just a guy, living a boring life in a boring apartment. There was nothing special about me. Or was there? Heading: The Memory. A memory flickered at the edge of my consciousness, like a dream I couldn't quite grasp. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there. I focused on it, trying to pull it into the light. "Wait," I said suddenly, my eyes snapping open. "There is something." Kira leaned forward, her expression intense. "What is it?" I don't know," I admitted, frustration creeping into my voice. "It's like a memory, but it's not clear. It's just there." "Focus," she urged, her voice calm but firm. "Try to remember." I closed my eyes again, trying to push past the fog in my mind. The memory was elusive, slipping through my fingers like smoke. But I could feel it, just out of reach. And then, it clicked. "My parents," I said suddenly, my voice barely above a whisper. They died when I was young. I don't remember much about them, but there's something. Something about the way they died." Kira's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," I admitted, my voice trembling. "It's like, I remember being told they died in a car accident, but it doesn't feel right. It's like there's more to it, but I can't remember." Kira nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. That could be it. If there's something about your past that's been hidden, something you're not supposed to remember, that could be why they're after you. But why? I asked, my voice rising. Why would they care about my parents? Why would they care about me? I don't know, she admitted. But we need to find out. If there's something about your past that they're trying to keep hidden, we need to uncover it. I nodded slowly, the weight of her words settling on my shoulders. Okay. So, how do we do that? We need to find someone who knows, she said, her voice firm. Someone who can tell us the truth. And who would that be? I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. Kira hesitated, her eyes fixed on the stabilizer. There's someone. Someone who might know. But it won't be easy to find them. Great, I muttered, running a hand through my hair. Because nothing about this has been easy so far.